I bet you are wondering how I achieved this effect with my camera to have the background out of focus but my subject is in focus. First, this is called shallow depth of field. When you selectively focus in on your subject, everything else will be out of focus. Let me show you how this works. I am going to take a photo of my daughter. When I focus in on her, I will determine how much of the subject is in focus. With the correct settings, I can make everything around her out of focus while keeping her in focus. There are three things that control depth of field: aperture, focal length, and distance from the subject. We will start with aperture. To get a shallow depth of field, we will need a large aperture number. To get a shallow depth of field, we need a large aperture hole, which means a small f-stop number. So a small aperture number, such as f2.8, is actually a large aperture opening. The larger the opening, the shallower the depth of field. I will now take a series of pictures of the same subject in the same place. My distance between me and the subject is the same, and the only thing I am changing is the f-stop number. I'm going from a large f-stop number to a larger number. Aperture values are not the only thing that controls depth of field. Your focal length plays a large part in depth of field as well. We're going to go back and shoot the same series again, but this time I'm going to change the focal length on my lens but keep my aperture the same. And lastly, let's talk about the distance from the subject. The closer you are to the subject, the shallower your depth of field will be. This time, I will leave my aperture setting and my focal length the same and change the distance. Notice, the closer I get to my subject, my scene becomes shallower, and when I move back, the distance becomes sharp. So, just to make sure you understand correctly, there are three things that affect shallow depth of field: aperture, focal length, and distance from the subject. A wider open aperture, a long focal length, and the closer proximity between you and your subject will give you the shallowest depth of field.